So like at a conference like this, generally it's high conscientious.
Yes.
They have the personality traits, if you will, to be
that's why
able
they're
to
here.
get out of the pleasure trap. But even many of them are still stuck.
Sure. Well, you'll see that they can for a while, and then they come back, and then they go again, and I mean, I unlike Dr. Lisle, I have some personal experience with this problem, and I'm very high conscientious, very high open, very high intelligence, and it's hard. It's very hard, even when you're eating a whole food plant-based diet, to really manage this problem. So
and many of us go on we do really well, we fall off.
Sure.
Or we try it for a week, we fall off. So let's go back to that learning curve.
Yes.
And how, if you do, say, for example, a 30-day challenge, or you do your starch targets to
Right.
80%,
Yeah.
and you fall off, does it get easier each time you do it? Is that failure actually a good thing because you've now sort of checked a box?
It is.
And each time you check that box, it's going to get a little easier to get a little further.
Can be. Yeah, in 12-step we call that relapse as part of recovery.
Oh.
So the process of relapsing is actually giving you more information.
Not that
about
I'm giving them a pass.
No.
Right. Sure.
But it's giving you more information about the nature of the problem, how you respond to different triggers and inputs, and also the delta of the way that you feel when you are getting the self-esteem feedback and when you're not. So all of these things are little processes that are finessing that cost-benefit analysis that you're making as you go along with the problem. It's not a guaranteed linear relationship that the more times you stumble, the more successful you will be. But if you have a nervous system that's incorporating that information, it can be. Like, yeah, I tell people stories about how it took me a long time to realize that the relapse on the vegan junk food when I was traveling, for example, is just not worth it, because you're paying such a serious toll for that, just in terms of how it would feel. Like, it stalls you out for a few weeks if you're in a weight loss process, and then you just feel hungover and crappy. Like, it's just not worth it. So I no longer will do that like I would have a couple of years ago.
So if I'm like in my group and someone says, I'm trying this 30-day challenge, I only made it 8 days or 5 days or whatever, and I've fallen off, what's the best thing for me to say? Is it, this, it's okay, get right back on tomorrow? What is
tell them it's a couple of days until they start getting a good report card from the self-esteem, from the internal audience.
Starting over hard work.
For most people, within a couple of days or maybe a week, if they're doing a really good, diligent job of the fundamentals of this problem, they're going to initiate that self-esteem process, and they're going to feel the benefits of that.
This is really good. So this is what I don't know that we're going to be talking about anything else for the next 5 years.
It's pretty much the most important thing.
It's such an important point, and so I never feel like we said it enough, even though percent by percent we get it every time, every iteration. So this is what we're trying to explain.
Everybody needs to hear it over and over.
But the 30-day challenge in people's minds is to where they can get to at the end of that 30 days and how much progress they're going to make. Okay? Completely reasonable. That is how normal human motivation would work, and that is how it's working, and that's fine. Here's what we want everybody to know. What you should really, the greatest gold that you're ever going to find, the pain that most people are in, is the internal audience is not happy with you.
It's not happy.
They have watched. It is
talking some serious trash.
Right. It's basically watched you do a mediocre job, get mediocre results, and it's frustrated with you. The self then finally says, okay, I'm now going to really try. It's out of the ego trap for a minute, and it's going to pin its ears back, and it's really going to make an effort. Okay, now, here's what we're really interested in. We're not interested in the great victory of the self, like pushing through all this thing and then getting to the 30 days and losing 15 pounds or whatever the hell it is. Not interested. What we're interested is in people observing, if they're watching carefully, that at some point after day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, probably just 3 days, that their internal audience will shut down and quiet down its criticism.
It'll stop yelling at you.
It will start to feel pride.
Yeah.
It will be very gentle and quiet, okay? But they will feel a rightness in the world, okay? And if they do it the 4th day, they get to continue to feel that rightness. And if they do it the 5th day, it will continue to feel that rightness. That feeling of rightness never leaves until the self disappoints the internal audience with a transgression.
Give it reason to.
Now, if you go 7 days and then you don't do well the 8th day, What we want to do, instead of saying, oh, the goal was 30 days and this great thing, forget it.
No.
What we're interested in is learning how the self-esteem, this is what we call the self-esteem mechanism. The internal audience is esteeming the self. Okay, it's saying, we, the outside people that live inside your mind, honor you because of the excellent job you've been doing. If on day 7 you mess up, they say, they don't like put all thumbs down. They just say, that wasn't, that was C work.
Yeah.
That was not the A work you've been doing. And now the self, though, can panic and basically say, uh-oh, the ego trap was too high. I can't do it after all. I quit.
Especially if there is a big competing external goal like a 30-day challenge or something. That just raises the stakes of throwing over the table.
Right. So this is why we want to get this message. What we're after is we're after learning about how our own mind works.
Yeah.
We want to learn that the self-esteem mechanism is lawful, it's predictable, it works.
It's like an old West sheriff.
Yeah, and so it is. And so
every day is new.
So the interesting thing is on day 8, if you toss it, the interesting thing is, were you paying attention to how good it felt through the 7? And then when you lost it on the 8th day, that's fine, because now we just learned an incredibly valuable lesson that our internal audience is unimpressed and they are signaling the self with appropriate mediocre feedback. And the thing is that now, how interesting will it be on day 8 and 9 and 10 to watch how quickly the internal audience will reverse field again and say, good job again.
And this actually becomes somewhat addictive.
Yes.
It becomes like, and this is what we want people to be addicted to, is that little feeling of learning that you actually are the puppet master of this process. And so you can, through your diligence, generate this really good feeling. And this is part of the relapse, is part of recovery idea, is that when you've done it enough and you've had that experience enough of having a few days of compliance and diligence, and realizing how quickly it turns it on, once you attune yourself to that feeling, it generates a lot of good feelings, the kind of drugs we're supposed to have.
Yeah.
So am I hearing you say it would be better not to frame it as a 30-day challenge and as something else?
The truth is that you always have external goals out there.
Sure, you can't pretend you don't.
You're by nature. And goals have to be big enough and interesting enough to inspire you. Okay?
Yeah.
So there's nothing in the world wrong with a 30-day challenge. We add this insight to the 30-day challenge. That the greatest lesson we attempt to learn from the 30-day challenge is the mechanism of your own self-esteem. That, and watch how that works. So when you
become a real scientist about it.
That's what we want. If people, this is actually the most important secret of life, is to understand that we cannot control whether when we lose weight we're going to get the beautiful feedback that we hope. We can't control, if we're an artist, that anybody's ever going to like our paintings. We can't control any outcomes at all. All you can do is you can do what you can do, and the outcomes, that's the marketplace. That's what other people think of you. Hey, you do the best you can, but you're not in control of that. But you are in control of self-esteem. Self-esteem, you are actually 100% in control of the self-esteem mechanism, but it's indirect. It's not the self-talk. You can't talk the internal audience into anything.
No, you can't.
It's not. It's an observer. You can't sell it, okay? It will watch and it will make its own conclusions about your behavioral excellence or lack thereof, and it will give you honest, absolute feedback about what it thinks about, did you do a good job relative to how I think that you should have been able to do. That's what it will do. Did you give a good effort? Okay? It doesn't care so much if you actually did a poor job at the painting. The question is, did you try as hard as you could? Were you really diligent? If you were, it may be disappointed in the outcome, but it's not disappointed in the process. And
So
that's
what
what we're trying to
happens
learn.
when you're disappointed with the outcome? What happens when you think you're doing this great job and the painting ends up being garbage?
The truth is that this is called learning. Learning is that we learn, okay,
I'm not the greatest painter.
I'm not the greatest painter, and what do I need to learn that I didn't know? Who can I go to that can help me with the law of perspective or colors? You know what I'm saying? It's like, hey, if we have failures out there in the marketplace, we have failures. I've had plenty of them. Okay, so, but the issue is, where we want to be paying attention to where we know we don't have to fail is in generating self-esteem. Self-esteem, we have control of that. It's just, did we work hard and well? This doesn't mean, by the way, that you have to be some hyper-conscientious nutcase that's working 18 waking hours a day on everything under the sun to be perfect. No. It means that your internal audience and yourself negotiate. The self actually sets what it considers to be reasonable goals for you, but it sets them high. The self isn't going to say, well, let's see if I can eat 2 bananas this week rather than the bacon and eggs I've been eating. The self will say, that's a bogus goal for the self. The self is designed by nature to be excited about a goal that is usually a little bit out of its reach. That's why a 30-day challenge is not a bad thing.
Not a bad thing at all.
It's most people are going to look at that and they're going to think, ooh, little intimidating, might be able to do it. That's a fine place for the self to be. And now, what we want to do though is we want to add this other lesson. That the biggest lesson we're trying to learn from this is, among a lot of things that we're going to learn. There's skill development. There's all the little problems of negotiating, the little temptations of the pleasure trap. There's a lot to learn in that 30 days as we roll up our shirt sleeves. But the most important thing we're attempting to learn is actually learn how our own self-esteem mechanism works. That is the most important thing. Because as a therapist, which both of us are, we do counseling for a living. That's what we do in our lives. And so that's the biggest thing that we're always honed in on. We can't know that you're going to get into a fancy school. I can't know that you're going to pass algebra. I don't know that that Sarah's going to go out with you. I don't know any of those things. But I do know whether or not we mapped out the things that you could do and that you worked diligently at them. If you did, then your self-esteem will honor you. If you didn't, your self-esteem will criticize you. And that's the feeling. The feeling of internal self-esteem criticizing us is a feeling of opportunity lost and essentially a squandering of our potential.
And it's miserable.
And it's a bad feeling. No matter how we cover it over with excuses from trauma, behind the ego trap, pretending that we're not trying, no matter how it is that we cover it up, the truth is it will eat at us. And the way out is through the process of honoring the self by excellent, diligent effort in an appropriate level targeted towards reasonable goals. That's how we've built.
Amazing. That was awesome.